Hey everybody, it's Carter Froelich. And our mission at Launch Development Finance Advisors is to be a hero to the land development and home building community. We do that through a lot of different ways, but one of the ways that I want to give back to the industry is to be able to share our experience as well as the experience of a myriad of different players in our industry, their experience, what they've learned, what they're doing, and just the knowledge that they have to provide to the industry. With that having been said, I hope you enjoy this episode. And if there's anything that we can do at launch to help you finance infrastructure, reduce costs, mitigate risk, all with the goal of enhancing project profitability and returns, please give us a call at the contact information in the show notes.
Welcome to the Land to Lots podcast, powered by Launch Development Finance Advisors. And now your host, Carter Froelich.
This is part 2 of my conversation with James Hamill and Bob Williams. Please listen to part 1 if you have not already. Hey, Bob. So I'm a CFO for a developer, a builder, and heard about SCIP program. God, this sounds great. We're going to do it. We got tentative track maps. I'm running my numbers. When realistically should I start to pencil in the proceeds, if you will? And we're going to do a deep dive on that, on just the infrastructure in a minute, into my pro forma. What would you say would be the most conservative, realistic point in the pro forma that I should show an influx of cash through the bonds?
Well, there's a big difference between financing improvements and financing fees. Okay. If you're financing fees, you're generally going to be at a latter stage of development where you're ready to pull building permits, because that's when you pull fees. So the pro forma with fees is fairly simple. Number one, I get reimbursed for all the fees up front that I've already paid. Number two, I'm going to not have to pay those fees at building permit. So that's kind of how you build the pro forma with fees. Okay, I'm going to get reimbursed up front. Instead of paying $150,000 per permit, I'm going to pay 110.
Yeah.
That's your pro forma for fees. For infrastructure, it's a little bit different. It's a different, if you're talking about a large master plan community, then basically it's a question of, well, I'm going to go out, I'm going to get a $50 million equity partnership. They're going to give me that money. I'm going to go put in that infrastructure. And then when you're done, we're going to go through, create an acquisition agreement, and we're going to reimburse you for those completed improvements. But you got to remember, you got to complete the improvements. So basically, you're going to have to come up with a construction loan or some interim financing. You're then going to have to go through and complete them. You're going to have to pay prevailing wage. So that gets factored into the public improvements. And then, unfortunately, this is something that SCIP can't get around. You still have to go through the agency to have them inspect the improvements, tell us they're done, and then they have to sign the requisition before we spend the money. So for improvements, you got to get a construction loan. You got to figure out how long it's going to take to install the improvements. And then, I hate to say it, you're going to have to add a little fudge factor in there for how long it's going to take the agency to finally get around to improvements. And then getting back to fees, it's easy. You get reimbursed up front for everything you've paid, and then it reduces your building permit cost.
So I appreciate that. That was very helpful. If I come to you and say, hey, Bob, hey, James, I really would like to use the first phase bonds to actually construct some of the infrastructure. And for some of it, that's not reimbursed. And maybe we have different improvement areas. We're sharing those costs to other improvement areas. Then I have the ability to both potentially put construction language in my construction and acquisition agreement versus just reimbursement. So maybe I can lower my cost, my third party borrowing or my equity. Is that do you see that a lot, guys, or is that more the exception than the rule? Because you see where I'm going.
Yeah, I see where you're going. You're talking about Texas now.
Yeah. Well, and just I'll secure it with a lien, with a special tax lien. But
Yeah.
I just need to issue sooner rather than later to help bring up the offsites.
There's a problem in California with doing that. And
Okay.
basically, the problem is legal. And the issue is that if you want to use that as construction financing, I mean, cities or counties can form districts, issue bonds, and put in
Mhm.
improvements themselves.
Yeah.
And they will do that as construction. The problem in California under state law is that if I want to use this as it has to be bid out as a public works project.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
believe it or not, I
Ouch.
have,
Okay. Say no more. I get it. No, but go ahead, Bob. I get
What
it.
would happen?
well, go ahead, James, but I did this once. I had a developer that said, oh, and we've done it a couple of times where we have handed over to the city the job of bidding out the work.
Yeah.
And no. Do I need to say more?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it becomes an incredibly bureaucratic process. So the
Okay.
answer is if the developer intends to install the work, it's
Mhm.
going to be an acquisition. If they're
Yeah.
willing to hand over that bid process to the
Yeah.
local agency, and I've seen it done a couple of times, and it doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
You,
And
so that's the only way in California
yeah.
that you can use bond proceeds through SCIP or otherwise
Yeah.
for construction sort of and acquisition.
So to answer your question, we don't see it.
Well,
Okay. Okay.
there was one
Yeah.
project that we did do that, as James, I'll talk to you about in
Yeah.
Southern California, and even the developer's attorney said, "Why don't you just get a construction loan?"
Okay. So in other words, what I'm hearing, guys, is hey, get a construction loan, put the infrastructure in, and we'll time the bonds to be able to take out that construction loan as soon as possible, as given
Yeah, and I think that
different cases.
the reason you're answering that question, Carter, is that some states have different laws.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some assessment district laws are written differently than California. And that is what ties our hands is that
Yeah.
when it's a construction financing, it has to be bid out as a public works project.
And it has to be bid out through the jurisdiction. The jurisdiction can't assign it to the developer to publicly bid.
No,
Because we do that a lot. Like for
they can
instance,
hire
Arizona.
consultants
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything, but it's you can't just say, oh, you do no, they can't just
Okay.
sort of you do it for us and then no,
Okay.
there has to be some direct local agency government involvement.
Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about fees, guys. So I'm a builder. I'm coming in and I go, hey, James, hey, Bob, I'm a builder. I don't want to pay prevailing wage. I don't have enough infrastructure to, really, be concerned about. I just want to pay fees. Okay. And we'll just leave it at fees, which would include AB 1600 fees as well as school fees. So I'm in the CFD world right now, correct? Because ADs can't finance school fees. Is that a correct
Well, if
statement?
you school fees, you're in CFDs, but you can still fund
Yeah,
fees with ADs. You
yeah,
just can't fund
yeah.
facility fees.
Okay. The and so how do you tell them, should we issue up front and give the agencies their money and then just take a credit when we're pulling permits? Or do we just pay some of the fees and then issue bonds later? What is the counsel, gentlemen, that you would give that builder as to do we issue up front or do we just pay some of the fees and we'll get you reimbursed?
I can kick it off, Bob, and then you can jump
Yeah.
in. But I think the program has the ability to do obviously both, as you know.
Yeah.
But it's really going to depend on the agency. There are some cities,
Yeah.
counties, districts who are much better at doing this, and some are much worse, and some can't do it at all. And the good thing is we've been in the marketplace enough that we know which agencies and can guide a developer and their consultant and whoever and say, you don't want to do this here, or you can do this here, or this is more user friendly or not user friendly. So the good thing is with the knowledge that we've built through this program, you'll know when you reach out that, this agency can't do that, will not do that, and or can do that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
So the ideal situation for financing fees is, let's just take a typical pool project. Let's say it's 150 units. And we financed road, water, sewer, storm drain, school. So maybe the developers and what we want for the pool is, for a smaller project like that, we want final map, we want near completed lots. So let's say by the time we issue, they pulled 10 permits. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to work it out so we reimburse them for the fees for those 10 permits. Then going forward, for the rest of the 140 units, it's great. They're writing a lot smaller check for their building permit because the agency's giving them a fee credit. That's the ideal situation.
Right.
The non-ideal situation is, and first of all, in order for us to finance those fees, the agency has to tell us they have an active capital improvement program. In other words, they have to be able, when we're doing these bond proceeds, they have to be able to spend them. They have to be able to spend them in 3 years. James is correct. Some cities cannot process fee credits. They just don't have the accounting to do it. And so in that case, what we have to do is we have to work out a situation where they pay the fees and they come back to us to get reimbursed. That's not ideal, but that's how it's done. And then what happens is we can't reimburse them until the agency tells us they've spent that amount. They've spent that amount.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's a bit of a lag. So then the final element in this, and something I'm kind of proud about, some agencies say, guess what? I'm not going to spend that fee in 3 years. It used to be that we would say, all right, well, that doesn't qualify any.
Yeah.
Well, now we have a very active taxable component to SCIP.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens with taxable bonds is all those IRS rules go away.
Yep.
So developer can be reimbursed day one, even if the city has spent a cent.
Yeah.
If the city can't process fee credits, then all they have to do is submit to us their receipts and we reimburse them. But the taxable rate is higher. And if you want to get into marketing stuff, there's no real institutional market for taxable bonds. We sell them retail.
Yeah.
And fortunately, RBC has a huge retail, and Carter, these bonds are very popular to retail.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Yeah.
But obviously the rates, you're paying 7.25%, not 4.75%.
Yeah. So anybody out there that wants to buy some taxable bonds, go talk to RBC. So now I'm going to get into weeds a little bit. So I'm a developer, I'm a consultant. I get on CSCDA's website, I go through and go, wow, this city that I'm developing in is a member of CSCDA. So I'm assuming I can use some of their financing because they've jumped through all the hoops. However, they've got a water district that I don't know if it's a member of CSCDA. They've got a school district. I don't know if it's a member of CSCDA. What is the whole process? Do I have to get everybody to be a member of CSCDA, or is it just if the city's going to be the lead agency, am I done? Or what is the counsel you give the developers on how we're going to round up all the cats so I can pay for infrastructure and I can pay for fees?
This is James Bailiwick. This is what James does every day. And he
Mr.
sends me
Hamill, you're batting, sir.
He sends me a little matrix of where we are for our weekly calls. So take it away, James.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's 2 steps here. I think, number one is the agency or agencies, whether it's a school district, a special district, or a city or a county, they need to be a member of CSCDA. That's the entry point. Number
Yeah.
two is if they want to participate in the program or with a standalone, they need to adopt another resolution to participate in the SCIP program. Now, we have a packet that we pull together that we send to the city, which includes the resolution, staff report, public hearing notice, everything that's required for them to participate. So we make it easy on the local agency. So if a developer, and we get these questions, this city is not a member, we put together the packet, send it over to them, and usually schedule a call or a meeting with them to walk through the steps to get from point A to point B. Depends really to your last question. Do we get them all in? Do we get some of them in? It depends on the project. It's easiest if we get all of them just to participate in SCIP
Yeah.
and get them to adopt the resolution. Now, if that's not going to happen, we can do a JCFA with those agencies, and we've done that
Okay.
where you have a school. It mostly happens in school districts where
Yeah.
they may not want to join the program and they just want to participate in this one financing, and we can do it that way. But we, again, we can tailor it however is necessary for the project.
Mhm.
But we, CSCDA, will be on the front lines to work with that agency. So the developer can just give us a heads up and then we reach out to them and do that. So your clients are not having to explain the program where that's what we're here for.
Yeah. And James and Bob, I want to thank you for taking all my calls saying, is XYZ a member? How and because sometimes the website, may not have been recently updated. So appreciate that and just reaching out to both James and Bob are really helpful guys. So if you have any questions, feel free to give them a holler. We're slowly coming down, to the yeah, to the end of our podcast, but I've got some more questions, so we're just going to keep on going, guys. And it's getting harder and harder to make deals work. I see this all over the country. And this is more or less a softball question, but how could using the SCIP program be a benefit, obviously, to a developer to make deals pencil? Softball question. And then more importantly, as it relates to as jurisdictions are looking to grow or not to grow, I mean, how can the CSCDA program be a competitive advantage for the agency or the municipality as they enact their and implement plans to grow to their future vision of where they'd like to be as a community? And I'll just leave that open to both of you. And if you don't mind responding to that.
But James, I'll take the developer's view, and then you can sort of take the, why would a city join to be sort of competitive from an economic development standpoint? Carter, we have a lot of developers that flat come to us and say, is this city a member of SCIP?
Yeah.
And because if they're not, our project doesn't pencil. End of
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
And I
Sure.
have an interesting story. I won't say the city or the developer, but we sat down with the city, and a developer said, we want to build this in this particular, it was a big, huge condo townhome complex. And they told the city, they said, look, we need you to join SCIP. Otherwise, we're not going to we're not going to purchase this land. And the city looked at him and said, oh, come on. Well,
Yeah.
the city didn't join and they didn't purchase the land.
Yeah. Yeah. Lesson learned.
So
Yeah.
it really is critically important. And I've talked to developers. They just say it's a matter of numbers. I have a different pro forma if I can use SCIP versus I can't. And if I can't, I very likely will not develop in that community. I'll
Yeah.
pass it back to James on the municipality side.
Yeah, I think from the municipality side, they look at it as it's a tool in their toolbox. I mean, they have a lot of different tools out there, grants, other things from a local perspective. But whenever we approach a city, county, or district, we say, number one, this is a tool. You don't have to use it. You can use it, but it's nice to have there because if you get a small, medium, large project that has and needs access to this type of financing, then you have it in your back pocket. Number two, to where we started this conversation, is it just takes the load off of these agencies whenever they get approached by a developer saying, you need to do this, a CFD, an AD, or whatever it may be. And then they can just say, well, call CSCDA and they'll work with you on this. So that's really, from the agency standpoint, that's the benefit, and that's why they we've seen a real uptick over the past really year and a half of agencies actually proactively calling us and saying, we don't even reach out to them, and they say, hey, we've heard about this, we want to join this, and get us the information to do that.
My running joke, thanks for that, James and Bob, is that you can't build a garage anymore unless you have some sort of special district in the state of California.
Yeah, I'm thinking about building an ADU, and I feel like I'm I'm a master plan developer.
Oh God, that's a whole other, yeah. Oh my God. So okay, guys, we're gonna get into the rapid fire session. Okay, so these are just quick questions. James, what is the smallest project you've ever done a skip on that you
200,000, but just FYI, we won't do those anymore. So
you heard it here first, guys. Would you do 201,000?
no.
Okay. Bob, what's been the biggest single bond issue to date through the program?
I gonna go back, and one of our pooled issues was about 50 million.
Okay.
And one thing that does, because I see a question of here about investors, is when you get, and that had a rating. So when you get up to a $50 million pool with an investment grade rating, you bring in a lot of players that you would not normally see. Lord Abbott comes in, Millennium comes in, Massachusetts. You start seeing investors that don't typically buy land secured. But quick answer, 50 million, it was rated.
Great. James, what is one myth or misunderstanding about SCIP that you wish would go away or you'd like to correct?
I'd probably say, what we run into a lot is that they feel SCIP or CFDs or whatever only benefit the developer, and it doesn't benefit the homeowner. And then we go and explain to them the homeowner's going to pay, the price in some shape or the other, whether it's the assessment or special tax or the price. So it is both sides of the coin. It's not just it's just not a benefit to the developer, and that's the biggest myth whenever we go before city council that you hear out there.
Right. And Bob, what is one question that every developer forgets to ask but should as it relates to getting involved in the program?
Good question. Well, generally, I think the biggest mistake is they come in too early. So the biggest question is, when should I submit? There are two processes, standalone. When should I submit my application? And so that's probably the biggest thing is, if you're, if you've just bought the land and you haven't even started your entitlement process, there's not much point in submitting us an application. So the biggest question is, when do I submit?
Great. Gentlemen, and James, this is to you. If we're having our listeners walk away from this podcast, what would be one actionable insight that you would like them to come away with as it relates to our conversation here today?
I think the one thing from my perspective is just, as I think Bob and I hopefully portrayed here, was the flexibility of the program, the ability for the program to really work for projects on a small, medium, large basis. And then just some of the, new things with the program, like the rating, which is obviously a large, interest rate savings on the pool program. So I'm hopeful that when people hear that, they see the benefits to the program as a whole.
Yeah. Bob, same question on the capital.
I'm gonna throw out something that I think SCIP is very unique. I think we sort of can, we can sort of mix and match and figure out just about how to do any kind of projects, except we don't like the sort of low credit quality deals. We don't want to do that. But one thing that we do, Carter, is what I call the CFD hybrid approach, which is, what if a developer comes in with a large project that's a standalone CFD? Okay, he's got 500 units, you would do a standalone CFD. What do we tell him? there's a program I call the CFD hybrid approach, where we basically create this sort of footprint for your large project.
Mhm.
And then what they do, because the fixed costs are low, is they sort of carve that up and they bring it through the pool. I would tell developers that is the single most cost-effective way to do land secured in California, period.
Okay, great, great. Gentlemen, I appreciate you guys taking the time to speak with us today and our listeners. And for our listeners, James and Bob's contact information has been provided in the show notes. So I encourage you to reach out if you have any questions. And until next podcast, I encourage you to subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts. And we're going to be signing off. James, Bob, thank you very much for spending time with us here today. I really appreciate your time.
Well, Carter, thanks for inviting us.
You have been listening to the Land to Lots podcast with Carter Froelich. Follow us wherever you find your podcasts to never miss a new episode.